Welcome back, everybody. I want to talk about animation today in SFML. And I also wanted to talk just a little bit more about the origin of a drawable object, like a circle shape or something. So I'm going to make a circle shape here. I'll call it shape 1. And I will set its radius to, let's see, green again, or blue, something like that. Actually, I'm going to do black, because my background is white now. And when I draw that, it by default will choose a location for that circle to be at 0, 0 on my screen. So let's just have a look there and run that. Shape1.setRadius, there is no matching function called .setRadius. Oh, setRadius is a float. Yeah, sorry. By default, it'll set a radius of 0, which is no good because then you won't see it on the screen. And then I'll do a set fill color to the black color that I was looking for. Okay, run that. Shape 1 was not declared in the scope. That's because, or shape was not declared in the scope. That's because I called it shape 1. Okay, great. So there's a black circle and it's located at the top of the screen. So I'm just going to pause this and set up my little tablet so I can write and draw some things to show you what I mean about what an origin is.
All right, I lost the pen for that little tablet that I had that I could draw with. But anyways, here's going to be a very terrible mouse drawing. Here's my screen, okay? SFML thinks this top corner is 0, 0, and right now it thinks this bottom corner is 800 pixels in the X and 600 in the Y. Kind of like a math grid, right? An X and a Y. This is the X direction, and Y is just down instead of up. A little bit awkward for what we've learned in math in our lives, but reasonable to deal with anyway. So if I have a circle, here's my black circle, let's say, okay? What SFML is always going to do is it's going to say, let me move this circle, let me try to move this circle to the middle of the screen, for instance. So I'm going to go shape1 dot, great, I lost my auto type now, set position 400, 300. And I'm just going to hit reparse this project. Hopefully that'll fix it. Okay. When I run that, I spelled shape 1 wrong. That's probably why it wasn't auto-typing. When I run that, you can see that that's not in the middle of the screen, right? But it actually is. It actually thinks that this top left point is in the middle of the screen. Okay, so it always by default takes everything's origin as if it were like the top left corner of some box that holds that shape. For rectangles it's fine because we actually want to probably grab the top left corner, but for circles we would rather have our origin right in the center here. Okay. And so if I actually maybe make a little circle shape and see what the where the origin is, circle shape, and I'll just call it origin. And I'm going to give it a radius. Sorry, I'm going to call this origin, right? So say origin dot set radius, and I'm going to make it small, like 5 pixels. And I'm going to set the color to red. Calling it shape, but it's origin dot set fill color to color colon red, like that. Okay, and then I am going to set its position. Little trick for you. Set position, and I could either give it a position variable a vector to f, a 2D number, or I can give it the x and y. I'm actually going to give it shape1 dot get position, which is a command that returns a 2D vector of position. Okay. Like that. So now it will have, essentially it'll have the origin. Its position will be the origin of the circle shape, because get position is actually spitting out the position of the origin. So when I go to draw that circle, it should be a little red circle at the origin of my first shape. Let's see if it is. Gotta close my window here. Ta-da! That's the origin. It thinks the origin is right there in the top left corner. Okay. If I change the origin to something smarter on my circle shape, shape1 dot set origin as a command, it's going to just replace the anchor point. Now I have two options. I can give it a 2D vector, which we haven't really worked with yet, or I can give it an x and a y floats. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to give it the origin of 100 and 100. Why 100 and 100? The reason is I know that this distance here is from here to here is 100, right? So I want to move it over because my radius is 100. I want to move it over 100 to get it to this point, because right now it thinks this is 0, 0, so move it into the x direction 100 and move it in the y direction down 100 as well. Okay, like that. And that will move my origin right in the center, and hopefully it'll center my ball up as well when I draw it. So let's see. Yes. So now my origin's in the center of my circle, and not only that, but my circle now is right in the middle of my screen at 400 and 300, because my screen is 800 by 600. So that's what origins do. They just move the anchor point of where SFML thinks your shapes are. They're useful for circles to keep your reference point in the center, so when you start bouncing off the walls and stuff, it actually makes your math a little easier. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is animating. So you're going to have this picture. I'm going to just put a link in the YouTube video to this picture on my Google Drive. Now, if I go to my desktop here, and I go to C++, Lab 12, it's a picture of it's called Sprite Sheet, and it's the picture of 16 different ogres. What we're going to do is try to get SFML to flip between these photos and give us the illusion of the animation. Okay? And we'll use the keyboard to do that too. So I'm just going to erase all this stuff so I can keep in the same project. And from yesterday, we made a sprite, right? And I'm going to call it ogre. And we had to make a texture variable as well so that we could save that picture into the memory of the computer. So I'll just call my texture t1. Okay. The texture is the variable that will open up that picture. I know this picture is in the folder of my project under Lab 12. I'm working with Lab 12 here. And if I go to Lab 12, I can see that I have ogre.png. So if I run this should not give me an error, say missing file or whatever, and it doesn't. If I spell ogre wrong, or if I do not put it in my project folder, it will just give me a little error message, can't open the file. So I'm going to set my sprite variable to have that texture on it. Set texture, and I pass it the variable name of my texture, t1. Okay. And when I go to draw this, window.draw, ogre, which is the sprite variable, it'll draw all 16 on the screen. But I actually only want to draw one, and I want to be able to flip between them and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is, if I look at this picture here of my ogre, let me just open it up here. Okay. Under desktop, C++ lab 12, here's my ogre picture. I don't want to save that. What I want to do is actually grab, like, for now, maybe I'll just grab this picture here, okay? So how am I going to do that? The way to do it is to use a command called let me see, I believe it is ogre.set texture rectangle, okay? And let's look at this command. It says the texture rect is useful if you don't want to display the whole texture, but rather a part of it. By default, the texture rect covers the entire texture. Set the sub-rectangle of the texture that the sprite will display. So I just have to pass it some sort of variable called an int rect. So I'm going to write the word int rect like that. And can I just pass it 4 numbers? Let me check. I think I can. So I need to pass it, if I go back to my picture here, I need to pass it the x and y of this point here. X and y. And then I need to pass it 4 things for a rectangle. So x and y, the top left corner. And then I also need to pass it the width and the height. Okay, so I need to, in here, write the numbers x, y, width, and height. Like that. Just the 4 numbers. So x and y should be pretty easy to find. I can actually just move my mouse and it'll show me down here in Paint where it is. The other smart thing I could do is I could look at these numbers. This is the size of the picture, right? So if I go to Calculator, and I know that in the x direction, I know that I'm going to just divide the x number by 4 and see that it's 107.5. So that's going to be the width of my picture, right? Because there's 4 in each slide. So I will go up here and write under width 107.5. Under height, if I look at the height of my picture, it's 579. I'll just say 580. I'll divide that by 4, and it's 145. So this ogre has probably 145 pixels in height, give or take. So I'm going to write under height 145. And then I just need to find the x and the y. For the x, I'm going to choose 0. Okay. Because I just want to like grab the very left of the screen here. And for the y, I'm just going to go start here, then I'm going to go down 107.5 and then down 107.5 one more time, because I know the height of the ogre is 107.5. So I'm basically just doing like 107.5 times 2. It's kind of a crazy way to animate. I'll say 250. So let's see if that pulls that picture of that ogre out of the air for me. I'm just going to put a semicolon here. Make sure my program is closed. And when I run it, do I get the ogre? Just the one ogre. Okay, yeah, I get something. Looks like I messed up a number though. It looks like I messed up this number. Let's go back to my picture here, and I need about 296. Oh, you know what I did? I did 107 times 2, but it's actually 145 times 2. Sorry. It actually should be 290 instead of 215. Very easy to make mistakes. So this is x, y, width, and height. That's what the rectangle needs in that order as well. Cool. There he is. He is just sitting there. It looks like I pulled the right picture out. Okay. I do not want to save this image, or I will wreck my program. It will have all the weird drawings I have on it. Okay. So let's look at this keyboard command. I'm going to copy this keyboard command here, all of it, and I'm going to put it in an if statement. If keyboard : is key pressed, and then it takes a key. So I'm going to change this from escape. There's lots of options. You can see all the different keyboard presses you can press. I'm going to press the letter D to move them to the right. Okay, so if the keyboard is pressed, I'm going to go ogre.move, and I'll press 5 and 0. The number 5 is basically his speed, right? Remember that this while loop is now set to run 60 times a second with this frame limit. And so when I move the ogre, it's going to move him 5 pixels 60 times a second. So around 300 pixels per second. So when I run this, if I press the letter D, he should move. There you go. He does move. And I could also do an else if. I might just do an if, not an else if, because then you can press multiple keys at the same time. You could also put an else if in here. It won't really matter for what we're doing. But I'm going to put the letter A, and I'm going to put -5. So now this guy can kind of dance around the screen, left and right. Okay? Which is cool. I would rather, when he walks, instead of like sliding, I would rather have him animate. So what I want to do is actually, every time I move him, I want to switch to this picture around some certain time, then this picture, and then this picture. Back and forth, and then back to this one, and then, so go through this, and so on. You get the idea. So let's close the program and see what we'll have to do is we'll have to change this rectangle on the fly. No problem. The only number we'll actually have to change is this X number, right? Because the height and the width of each picture is the same, so those don't need to change. They're 107.5 and 145. The Y value of where the rectangle we want doesn't change. It's always along this line. We just have to change this X to 0, and then 107.5, and then 107.5 times 2, and 107.5 times 3, and so on and so forth. So let's do that. We'll actually do it inside of our if statement that moves them to the right. Okay, so in here, I'm going to just call this command again. I'm actually going to copy and paste it. Set texture rect like this. Okay. And I have to figure out how to get this number to move. And these have to be, these can be integers, I guess, or floats. But let me put a float here, actually. I think it probably rounded it down to 107. Because it does say interact, which means it must have taken all integers. Okay. So let's make a variable, an integer variable, inside of this if statement. And I'll just call it x position or something. X position. X texture position, maybe. X texture. That's a good number. And I'll start it at 0. And then I'll replace my 0 with X texture. Should not change anything about my code. Should still just slide them across the screen. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change X texture. Every time he moves, I'm going to, I kind of want a number that goes from 0, 1, 2, and 3, because there's 4 pictures. So I want it to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. So what I could do is I could make X texture like this equal the ogre's, maybe his X position. Let's try that. Ogre.getPosition.x. That's going to be a float, but it'll change it over, right? Okay. Dot X. I'll just do that for now. Let me run that. This is going to look really weird. This is going to look like a kaleidoscope or something. You see that? It's very strange. So if I see out X texture on the screen, you will see that it's just going to be the guy's position. So it'll just go from like 0 to 800 or something. You see that? It's going up by 5. So that is not a number that's between 0 and 3, but to get a number between 0 and 3, if I want, I could take this number, turn it into an integer. If you remember how to do that, like that, okay, and then percent it by 4, remainder. If I divide something by 4, the remainder will always be between 0, 1, and 3. Do you see that? Pretty neat little trick there, right? By definition, dividing something by 4 will only leave you a remainder of 0 if it goes into it evenly, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that is now a number between 0, 1, and 3, which is cool. The only other thing I have to do now is, because I know this is my 0th picture, my 1st picture, my 2nd picture, my 3rd picture, I should times the number, my X position, by the width of my picture, which is 107.5. Seems very complicated at first, just because there's a lot of numbers being thrown at you. But if I can take that 0 and times it by 107.5, equals X texture times 107.5, like that. Then, let's see how he does. He is definitely animating. The problem is it's switching so quickly that we don't really, it doesn't look natural. It just looks crazy. So what we could do here is we could kind of buffer the speed of it by maybe saying, don't change this so often, right? So right now it's changing his picture every single frame, and maybe I don't want to change his picture every single frame. So the way I'm going to deal with that is, what I'm going to do is take his position and just divide it by some sort of number, so that this number actually goes up slower. It'll go up 10 times slower, right? If I divide a number by 10, keeping in mind it's an integer, if this was 1, then if I divide it by 10, it will be 0. And if it's 2, if I divide it by 10, it'll be 0. And if it's 3 and I divide it by 10, it'll be 0. Remember, C++ does integer division. It will only be the number 1 after I get to my 10th frame. So basically slowing it down 10 times. Another little integer math trick there. So now the guy will animate 10 times slower. He's still a little bit fast for my taste there, so maybe I'll say 20 times slower. And that looks pretty good. Still a little bit fast, so maybe 25 times slower. Go get him. So that's cool. He does animate now. He doesn't animate running to the left yet. So what I could do here is I could say, if I'm moving to the left, I could just make all of this code the same. Okay. The only thing I'll have to change is this line here. Copy as well. I just have to change one number in there. Okay, I'm actually going to get rid of my cout now too. It's distracting. So the one number I have to change is it's this number. This was 290 because I wanted this row of pictures. But now that he's moving to the left, I actually want this row of pictures. So he is now, if the height of each ogre is 145, I actually need this to be 145 for the Y. So instead of 290, if I write 145, it'll still grab the pictures of the same width and height. They're all the same width and height. It'll still do the X texture thing where it just jumps between 0, 107.5, 107.5 times 2, and 107.5 times 3, except it'll just be getting this row of ogres instead of this row of ogres. Okay, so I'm going to run it. And cool, he walks that way, and he walks the other way too. And if I want to move him up and down, just copy all of this code. I got to use the letter S to move him down. This should all be good. This should change to .y, right? I want him to change his animation if his Y position moves up and down. If he's moving left or right, I want to change his animation based on his X position. If he's moving up or down, I want to change it based on his Y position. So I'm going to set that to Y. I might even call this Y texture. I'll call this Y texture. And I'll call this Y texture. I'll keep them all X because the texture is still, even though he's going to be moving down, I'm just moving my texture over in the X direction. I'm just trying to grab a different rectangle. So I'm trying to grab these four. 1, 2, 3, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. Okay, so that should all be good. That's still 107.5. The only thing now is this. Yeah, that's still fine too. This should be 0 though, okay? Because the picture here, the Y position of this row of pictures is all 0. So let's see if that moves him down. The other thing I want to do is obviously not move him over to the left. I want to move him down. So I'll say +5 and run that. Wow, it's cool, eh? Diagonal looks weird, and I can't move up yet, but I can quickly copy and paste the code to do that. And I'm going to use the letter W to move up. And here I'm just going to write -5. And the only other number I'll change is this one, which tells me what row of pictures I'm on. I want the very last row, which is going to be 145 times 3. So 435. Let's have a look and see if this will update my pictures. Get a little ogre animating. It seems like it would be an easy thing to do, but this is a very tricky thing to do. Okay? Runs really smoothly though. So if you want to do some animation, all you need is a picture with some animations. You can Google the word sprite sheet, and there'll be some decent ones online. The other important thing for us is that they are all in a grid, right? Sometimes you get a sprite sheet where the dudes are all over the place. Then it makes it very tricky to come up with little cool tricks that will allow you to kind of skip through the pictures as your guy moves. So if you can get a sprite sheet where you have a whole bunch of pictures on a grid, you're good to go. Okay? And the lab will have a different sprite sheet that you can check out. But that's pretty neat. That's kind of the beginnings of a 2D game. He cuts off if he... I don't know why he cuts off when he goes off the screen. We'll have to figure out why later. Okay, thanks for watching. Sorry for the long video, but you got all day. Try lab 12, 11, whatever it's called. And we'll talk later.